Welcome back to another video that is not a fan case. But I hope you stick with it because this is going to be another work of fan fiction, because I've done that on this channel before. You might have seen it, although that was a sequel to a fan case. In this case, this is an entirely independent work, and when I say work, it is the length of a full novel. So we've got a lot to read through here. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it all in one video. Probably not. There's 23 chapters. There's 121,864 words. And this was completed just 2 days ago by a good friend of mine, Hazel. And it's called While the Leaves Wither Away. Now what this is a piece of Yokai Watch fan fiction. Now I'm assuming a lot of my viewers come from my Ace Attorney videos, because that is mainly what this channel's about. But I've also been a long time fan of Yokai Watch for even longer than I've been a fan of Ace Attorney. And there's a few pieces of fan fiction I've read. I've not really gotten big into the fan fiction scene. But this is a alternate universe. This is I've read the first 3 chapters already prior to this, but it's been a while, so I'm reading through them again anyway. But yeah, this is a completely alternate universe, so you actually don't really need to know anything about Yokai Watch itself to understand this, because this is just doing its own thing. But if you are a fan of Yokai Watch, I can tell you you'll definitely love this. So without further ado, we're going to start reading from chapter 1, February 17th, but I'll just read the summary quickly. It says, While the Leaves Wither Away by Hazy Tide. Buck had everything. Deep down, he knew it. He'd been offered love on a silver platter while feasting among the raccoons, only to tear it all apart. He knew he was never frustrated, nor changed, as that was who he was always born to be, loving that boy. Because he did love him. He loved him to bits. And maybe, in a better life, one free from his chains, he'd believe it to be less sinful to love himself, to love him than to hate himself. Ugh. Trying to do the dramatic reading, I'm fumbling on the first paragraph. I'm sorry for that, but we'll start chapter 1, February 17th. Okay, so that was the summary, I guess, for the whole story, and this is the chapter summary. Nate's mother is watching the news of a devastating house fire happening in St. Peanutsburg BBQ. I will pause and give you little bits of context where I feel it's needed. So, St. Peanutsburg is the setting of the 3rd Yokai Watch game, and BBQ is the localized version of USA, because in that game, it's a Japanese game, of course, and in that game you go from Japan to America. But obviously there's a problem when you've localized the English version to be America. You can't really go from America to America. So they invented this fictional country called BBQ. It's beautiful. Beautiful game. Yokai Watch 3. Go and play it. Do it. It is one of my favorite games of all time. Probably my favorite game of all time, to be honest. I mean, Ace Attorney's up there, of course. Without further ado, let's begin the story. Do you believe in yokai, dear? Stunned, the mistress blinked a single time in response to that bizarre query. It was like she was brought out of a trance, a once hazy expression akin to the mist that had formed outside earlier that evening. Now she stood perplexed. No, that was her answer. And any other would be ridiculous. Those were an overseas fantasy. She murmured a reminder as if she were gently scolding a young child. Not a fantasy, the man spat out, that familiar bitter tone forcing the woman to shrink back ever so slightly. Not enough for him to notice, his back turned to her, but he could predict it, a smirk laced with bad faith pulling at his lips. Ruthless creatures, those things. Though they are ravaged other continents, stealing the lives of many, this country is blessed, see. We were spared. Of course, our greatness would only guarantee that. He paused, the poor woman holding back a cough or two as the intoxicating smell of his cigar filled the room. My greatness. Yes, they are otherworldly beings, but they are small. Nothing I can't handle. Of course, dear. Smile and nod, that was her role. One she'd suffered with for far too long. Look at me, Elizabeth. He barked under his breath, only the bed in between them acting as a barrier. Look at our home. You've seen them out there, showing up to our door only to spew complete bullshit. Damn proletariat bullshit about me. I have graced them with countless blessings, and for what? Nothing changes. We ask them to leave. They come back. We beg for mercy. They show pitchforks and pomodori. What am I, a witch to be hunted? Have you considered listening to them? Excuse you. She swallowed a heavy stone, his stare flashing only dread. I mean, tripping over her words, she never meant to have crossed him, taking extra care to ensure that line remained far away. But for him, the sick, conniving bastard before her, she knew he took a pride in her faults. As always, she'd need to tread carefully. I'm sorry, but maybe they'd have something worthwhile to say. It could benefit your campaign. That's... She let a shaky exhale slip. That's all. You don't understand. I know I don't, the mistress admitted defeat. As always. I'm sorry. No! Do you hear me? You don't! You don't! With a firm, scarred fist slammed atop the dresser. She slapped her own hand to her mouth to suppress the yelp that followed. Aside from her quickened breaths, the cracking of his knuckles, the rain that had followed suit plummeting to the ground outside the prestigious manor, all was silent. Eventually, he spoke once more. We are at a point of no return. She didn't dare to ask what those words entailed. I cannot continue like this any longer. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm finished. I've accepted that. But... He put out his cigar, narrow eyes trailing to the cabinet at the foot of the bed. A second chance. There's one of them. Oh, what I'd do to have a single taste. He ran. The taste of what, dear? And ran. A taste of death, of course. Until his legs couldn't carry him any more. All he knew at that moment was to run. Memories pricked at his mind, but he battered them away with no remorse. He'd recount times where he was scolded for trying to explore past the gardens, finely pruned topiaries and endless beds of roses were not enough. He wouldn't even think about the pond by the weeping willow. All he wanted was to go to the forest, search for whatever creatures waited for him there. Maybe even treasure? He knew he wasn't meant to go, yet here he was. The dark woods lay ahead, its trees sheltering the house from the outside world, and now he prayed the building would stay in prison forever. With specks of black floating past, retreating from the disaster sitting behind, he had no choice but to stare as he tried catching his breath. Everything he knew was burning. The heat still reached him, causing his sensitive skin to sting, and like always he cowered away in fear. That was who he was known for. The black sheep of the house, despite the fortunes and promises served to him on a crystalline platter. He'd recalled the countless instances where his father's disappointment was clear, and raised a fist to bang against his head, a foolish attempt to somehow beat the memory to death. Amidst it all, the blurred sight of the flames engulfing the house, eating away everything in its path. All he wanted to do was let the ground sink. Maybe it'd be more peaceful that way. He'd disappear forever, and no one would have to suffer through his burden. Maybe this was all supposed to happen. Revenge for his mistakes. And in that moment, he truly thought he'd be taken. By who? He could only suspect the gods, their hazy silhouette appearing before the boy. It stared, he assumed. And once he finally let his tears fall, the image only grew clearer, though his confusion also arose. A deer! Though this one seemed part of the mist, belonging to the unknown. It approached, slowly, but that movement was enough for him to crawl further away. Ignoring his fear, the ghostly animal got closer, its soul rejecting its current form for the time being. Before him a spirit stood, the likes of which he had never seen. Perhaps this was a guardian angel. Perhaps he had died in that house, and she was here to escort him to heaven. That is what his mother had told him, and so he accepted, shifting closer to the being. An unfortunate soul this is. He froze. It'd be easy for me to take it, I'd imagine. At that, his mind had become a jumbled mess, unsure of what to make of the situation. His reddened, shivering face, with wet streaks coating his cheeks, dared to look up at the woman. That is Oh! She chided herself, reaching a delicate hand to cup his cheek, wiping those tears away. It's okay. No need to cry. Despite her daunting figure, she was surprised to find him somewhat unfazed, especially for a child his age. And she knew he'd never survive out here by himself, no matter how soon he changes his mind and chooses to fear death instead of embrace it. No, you deserve a second chance. Devastating scenes hit St. Petersburg tonight as citizens of East Pine are forced to evacuate. The Hazeltine house, home to Senator Giovanni Hazeltine, erupted into flame around 20 minutes ago now. The inferno is still alive as we speak. Firefighters are working desperately to battle the blaze, as well as search for anyone remaining inside. So far, no survivors have been confirmed. With the extent of this disaster, it's predicted the fire will survive until sunset. Should it continue to the shooting out the buzz of the TV, the child paid it no mind and instead focused on the book at hand. It was a gift from their father. A little challenge as it was really meant for older kids, but they didn't mind at all. An adventure novel taking place somewhere far away. The mayhem the characters found themselves in made it nearly impossible to look away from, and they couldn't be more placid about it. They were already curled up by their mother's side, but were soon pulled even closer, a small pout forming at the slight disturbance. Oh, sorry, honey, she sighed, her free hand coming up to brush through her child's hair. They tried to cut it by themselves earlier that week. It was a miracle that it was still salvageable. The choppy pod's barely an issue to fix. The news is a bit scary tonight, that's all. Only then did the child notice the bright headlines radiating from the TV. A woman standing front and centre to explain the details of an assumed disaster. Images of the fire flashed on the screen, the footage as close as the cameramen were comfortable with, and that instilled only fear to the rest of the audience. The child included, they let out a meek squeak and hid their face away, as if the pillows would protect them. Aww. Their mother cooed their name, one the child would prefer to forget. I don't know what else to do there. Even with the most reassuring of gestures, they still refused to come out of hiding. A soft whine hitting the cushion their face was pressed into, and it was only until she turned the TV off that the child finally pulled away, finding comfort in a familiar silence. But that silence brought a chill, resulting in the room's eerie darkness, a sense of cold floating into the scene. The woman chuckled, tugging the rope under the table lamp to illuminate their surroundings, even just a little. It was enough, and the child found peace in their book once more, immersed into the story. Such a little nerd. They knew she was teasing, unresponsive to her words, no matter how close she held them. It did worry her, truly, how quiet her child could be. A worry that had brewed for a couple years now, and events sending the little one into an almost dormant state, as if they were hardly there. They'd listen, yes, but only rarely were words uttered. The child may find the silence calming, but their mother would only feel dread. Today she'd be stuck like this for a while. Her husband was working late once again, leaving her alone with with only her reticent kid. No different than any other day. Sweetie, you're going to turn to an actual bookworm at this rate. Finish up that chapter and then it's time for bed, okay? Despite it all, she still loved him to bits. Of course, the child started reading slower at that deal, making sure to take in every detail. The words on the pages were their friends, and all they wanted to do was stay with them for as long as possible. It'd be easier that way. Second chance for a life that might not turn out so cold. In truth, they yearned for that reality more than anything else in the world. For some circumstances, especially his, he knew second chances were impossible. I'll keep you safe. Don't worry. She was frightened by the news again, refusing to let a past torment come back to take him too, holding him tight as if to protect him from all the bad she knew still lingered in the world. She already lost one to them. She wouldn't lose the other. Now that was quite ominous, wouldn't you agree? We'll move on to the next chapter. Without further ado, I'm just going to quickly have a drink. Okay, so live reaction to the first chapter. You can't have it because I already read the first chapter, as I said. But I know when I did read it, I was confused by a lot. But because I was trying to work out sort of how this links to the Yokai Watch canon. Of course, if you don't know anything about the Yokai Watch canon and you're going in completely blind, then you obviously weren't wondering such things. So I'll be interested in what you thought of that. But we'll continue. So we got Chapter 2, Welcome to BBQ. So, Nate and his family moved to BBQ, and the plane isn't the only vessel flying in the sky. Wonder what that could be. So, we've got notes here. Devastating news, Nate is now British. I know, this is the worst tragedy ever since fucking Pompeii or something. Oh, also, y'all love fan kids so much that now how about fan parents and fan siblings? Everyone say hi to Noelle. And Nadia and Harvey too, I guess. So we're about to meet some new characters who, I have seen a lot of art of these characters from Hazel without knowing the context of the story. So be interesting because they've not all been introduced by chapter 3, which is what I got up to. Nate is the main protagonist of Yokai Watch, by the way. If you've even heard of Yokai Watch, you will have probably known that. And I mean, he is canonically British in at least the first 2 games where they had the currency as pound sterling. But yeah, 7 years later. So we've got a nice little time skip here. And for Ace Attorney fans, 7 years later, nice familiar time skip. Hurry up, Nate. Despite all odds, a light did appear at the end of the tunnel. Several years passed by, the small child growing up to a calm young boy. Thankfully, the usual silence he carried didn't weigh so much anymore, only kept in the depths of his pockets whenever he thought to use it. Her return was the catalyst, her steady presence radiating onto him. He couldn't be happier. The headphones helped too, a present from a few birthdays ago that somehow still function today. Well, I had to replace my headphones quite recently, but most of the time, my headphones last me a long time. Used right now amidst all the chaos inside the airport, with families rushing to their flights and suitcases clacking against the marble floors. In other words, hell, but he'd learned to live with it. His overcrowded school prepared him for such scenarios. I've never been to an airport myself, but I will be going probably in September. Actually, twice, because I think I might be going to the Isle of Man, which is, if you don't know, it's an island sort of in between Britain and Ireland on a little holiday. So that should be fun if we can get that sorted. But I will be definitely going on my study abroad trip in Japan, which has been officially confirmed now. So I'll be looking forward to that. I'll still try and record videos from Japan. But I might obviously have less time because there'll be all kinds of stuff I'll be getting up to there. But in this case, they're not. They're going on a flight to BBQ. And if you want to know the general vibes of what BBQ is like, by the way, um, it's basically the vision of what Japanese people see America as. It is actually somewhere. If America was like that in real life, I'd probably want to live there, to be honest. But I doubt. I know it's not actually. Anyway, we'll continue. Following the girl in front, he freed the single ear from the device to check if she had anything worthwhile to say. Mum said the plane lasts for like ever. I don't know how I'm going to survive. Ah, she did not, and he chuckled at that, albeit sheepishly. He had an entire week to prepare, but of course she still found a way to complain, and his own nerves were only strengthening their grip. Typical. We passed the stationery store earlier. Now you tell me. His sister's mouth hung wide open, some stray hairs falling at the way her head whipped round, which he made sure to quickly fix. Where? You know I've been needing a new Oh! She beamed once her scan proved successful, locking onto the site of a small store fairly close to the food court. Once more, Nate found himself a victim to her spontaneous nature, one he still wasn't quite used to yet, and he allowed himself to be hauled over to the next destination, even when he heard their parents calling out their names. Nosy! You're not allowed to call me that, Noelle reminded him, as politely as she could, but Nate knew that exaggerated smile proved otherwise. Okay, but he huffed quickly, stepping out of the aisle she was browsing in to take a peek at the main area, spotting their parents right away, just from the sight of his mother's massive suitcase alone. Mum and Dad are looking for us, and you can't even buy anything without a boarding pass. Okay, go get that then, she suggested as if it were obvious, the two firing blinks at each other like bullets, and ultimately Nate lost the war. He's gonna say no. As if he's not gonna let me bored to death on this plane. She grinned, wafting her hand towards her brother as a gesture for him to leave. Go off with you. Since I've not been on a plane, I've heard what it's like on a plane. And apparently, it's really exciting when you take off, and it's really exciting when you land, but not so exciting the rest of the way. Obviously, that's why you've got to have distraction, like a movie, or in this case, a sketch pad. No, that was her father's response. What? But it. Words failed to work for her as they all came out in a jumbled mess, her finger restlessly tapping the A4 sketchbook as if that would convince him. Dad, if you buy a pen too, you get a discount. 20 quid. Come on, I know you've got 20 quid to spare. Nosy. He couldn't help but chuckle, shaking his head, more in amusement than disapproval. £20 for that is ridiculous, and you know it, love. And you already finished your old one. There's some works in progress, but yeah, the pages are all used up. She scooted a little closer, the raised eyebrow at her insistence not going unnoticed. Dad, didn't I already tell you how bad airport prices are? Her shoulders slumped, either in sadness or as a way to guilt trip, he couldn't tell. Either way, remorse got to him like it always did, his hand coming up to lightly pet her head, the soft blue locks resting under his palm. I'll get you a better sketchbook when we land, alright? The pages in that one are too brittle anyway. Now come on. He offered her own suitcase with a hint of urgency, the poor man having to tow it as well as his own for ages. Their flight was probably going to start boarding any minute now. It wasn't the time for shopping, and she knew it. Fine, the girl grumbled, about to make a snarky comment about how he held out his hand as if she was some toddler, but a busy crowd swirling around the airport proved it necessary. How long's the plane for again? 10 hours, he answered simply, glancing down to find himself stifling a laugh at her sour look, giving her hand a light squeeze. He knew from the start, as soon as they booked the tickets, he knew full well she'd be restless through the entire thing. But at this rate, it'll be none if we miss the flight. Nevertheless, the two caught up to the other half of their family, Nate having returned to his mother. Taking a quick glance at the wide screen, they double and triple check where to go. Gate 2. 6. Noel was corrected, Nate getting his elbow jammed in the process. How? It says it right there. Gate 6, St. Peanutsburg. The boy's observation was proven right, the family making it to the correct gate just in time for the final boarding call. So it was basically over, so the plane wasn't completely full, as expected during peak vacation times, though a holiday wasn't what they were after. Nervous, dear? Yes, how could he not be? The news they were told by their father, a promotion, and being rushed to pack their bags in preparation for the move, had been lingering on his mind the entire time. He didn't exactly like Springdale. If he were anywhere but home, it'd feel all foreign and vague, despite spending his entire life in the bustling town. He was known, but he wasn't known. Keeping to yourself and hardly uttering a word, does that to you? Still, that was how he preferred it. He knew he'd get homesick, silly as that sounds, as his new home was waiting for him. It was strange, conflicting. I looked up some stuff about St. Petersburg. He decided to focus on that, distracting himself from the internal anxiety. Apparently they have a history of supernatural events. Oh? His mother grinned, giving the watch on his wrist a little tap. It used to be hers, a hand-me-down to her son, and while she tended to abuse its use, he barely batted an eye. He only wore it on the plane to ensure it didn't get lost. Like yokai? No, like sudden disturbances and stuff, he responded bluntly. The lack of yokai involved still reminded him of the watch, staring down at the chunky device. Other than summoning yokai, it offered a certain power for the wearer as well, and Nate remembered very well how he frowned as soon as that power was assigned to him. It had been a weight that'd never leave, having to own such an item. Just another addition to his already overflowing box of problems. So already this diverges from the main canon because, well, for one, Nate doesn't have any siblings, and for another, he does not get the watch from his mum in the main timeline. So very interested to see something more of the story behind that. He sighed, hiding his face in his hands, brushing through his fringe. I don't want to deal with yokai anymore. Hey now. This distaste wasn't used to his mother, who rubbed a hand up and down his back as a way to soothe his nerves. His own history with the beings was complicated. On one hand, there was his sister, and on the other... She bit her lip. No, her mind wasn't going to go there now. Just, if there are yokai, it's mainly the harmless ones that stick to themselves, remember? The rest are gone. Keep to yourself and you'll be fine. Focus on other things. Her smile returned, giving him a little nudge. Who knows, maybe your classmates will be nice. If the move would provide anything, it was another chance to make friends. Springdale had butchered that entirely. Most of Nate's life spent in isolation, and from that it proved any social interaction outside his family to be feared. Still, if it would make his mother happy, he'd be willing to give it a try. Maybe. He'd settle on it later. Probably. Yeah. And this is another thing that is different. This childhood Nate's having no friends, some traumatic event that seems as being hinted at here. No idea what that could be. How much do you make now? Noah bluntly asked as soon as she was buckled into her seatbelt, pridefully taking the window seat next to her dad, with their mother and brother sitting in the aisle in front. Perfect. If Nate tries anything, she can kick this chair. I make enough, he simply replied. If he gave an exact answer, she started demanding extra pocket money, he assumed. You have everything you need, yeah? Yep, except a sketchbook, his daughter replied with gritted teeth, but nothing serious. Rummaging through her bag, she took out many belongings. Headphones, portable gaming console, snacks she was allowed to get from duty-free, anything to keep her occupied. What are you going to do? Stare at a wall? Sleep, actually. My first shift's tomorrow. Wait, already? He nodded, her eyes squinting at his shamefaced expression. The flight was already late enough, long enough, and thanks to time zones, it would still be dark once they land. She should have thought of how messed up their sleep schedules would become. By morning, she'd be akin to a zombie, and who knows how working in a busy hospital would turn out for him. He was already fatigued most of the time. Lame, she declared. Destroyed sleep schedule aside, this flight was a blessing in disguise, and she was already planning out what to do for the entire duration. As her father suspected, only an hour or so passed and she was out like a light. Before he did as well, and he silently smiled at the sight of her snoozing against his side, the man soon falling asleep as well. Hey, what's that? Nate wasn't entirely sure what to expect when he woke up, assuming he'd be greeted by morning sunlight as always. To his surprise, the only lights present were lined along the plane's walls. That and several other passengers scurrying to get their phones out, not hesitating to keep the flash on for the cameras. What's going on? Following the direction they were all staring, more and more soon realizing what was in view, he followed it and found himself peering out of the small window in his aisle. Faint yellow spots scattered across the ground, which he suspected were the generic city lights, but that was normal, wasn't it? No, his target also joined them in the sky. Red flashes dotted around a peculiar silhouette. Mum? Mum? The boy rushed to shake her awake, his free hand repeatedly tapping the window pane, watching as soon as she stirred. Huh? Raising her head. At first, the woman was going to groan and plead for a few minutes longer, but the urgency written on her son's face washed that stubbornness away. Is that a UFO? He hesitated to ask, knowing it sounded silly, but barely having a clue how else to put it. However, one more glance out the window proved that whatever he claimed was gone. By the way, UFOs, that's something that was lifted from Yokai Watch 3. They are very important to the story of Yokai Watch 3. What? But his fingers immediately rushed to rub his eyes, noticing several others on the plane with disappointed looks, many asking others if they got anything on camera. A UFO, huh? Still trying to get the sleep out of his system, her mother came to the conclusion that he had been dreaming, confused upon waking. But the state of the other passengers said otherwise. They both blinked at each other, confused more than anything. It might have been another plane, she suggested. Even she doubted her own words. But there wasn't any point in arguing. Nate didn't know for sure what he saw after all, and he certainly wasn't going to go harassing randoms in either seats and asking for their own reports. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please return to your seats? The pilot instructed over the intercom with a sense of exasperation lacing his thick, southern accent. He took a moment to compose himself before continuing. We are due to be landing in St. Petersburg in approximately 15 minutes. Please ensure your seatbelts are tightly fastened in preparation for the landing. Thank you for flying with us. Finally. The twins' father had told them prior to the journey that BBQ was a relatively big country. Not just in size, but in presence, refusing to give up its position in the spotlight. Everyone knew about it. Thankfully, their initial uneasiness was calmed as soon as it was confirmed that their father would work at a hospital in St. Petersburg. Unlike its general location, the town definitely wasn't big enough to attract any unwanted attention, even with the ongoing rumors about the supernatural. So that's a... even if I hadn't told you, you would have guessed from that description what this country is based on. That UFO sighting, that Nate was still struggling to decide if it was a dream or not, did not help in the slightest. At least the house was nice. This one's my room. Noelle ran about 4 laps around the full building before declaring she knew it off by heart, not missing the old home in the slightest. The ceilings were higher, the garden outside had much more space, and the polished wooden floorboards sounded particularly nice to stomp on, the girl grinning as the planks squeaked under her light-up trainers. The best part? She'd get her own room. No more sharing with Nate. Her dad's promotion was a blessing calling out for her specifically. Surely she'd no longer have to put up with her brother's snoring, which she continuously denied even happened. Even then, she couldn't deny that the silence was a little daunting. Being forced into a sleeping bag tonight also didn't help at all. It should be early morning for her remains as the middle of the night instead, just like when the plane took off. She shouldn't have slept, damn it. Now she was wide awake. Apparently something else was too, given the strange whirring from outside. Maybe the moving van was finally here. She could definitely sleep better in a comfy bed. Scrambling out from under the covers, Noelle tiptoed to the window and lifted one of the curtains to the side, wanting to take a peek. Nothing in the driveway below or in the desolate streets. She spotted an orange stray cat, but she was sure they didn't make such a bizarre noise. Instead, she looked up. Nate! Oh shit, whoops, Nate! Hopefully she never woke up their parents. Having rushed into Nate's room, she wasted no time in grabbing his shoulder and harshly shaking him awake. The boy scowling as soon as he rose. So, yeah. She's just looking for the source of a noise, and then looks up. So, I'm guessing it's the. I mean, I've already read this, but it's been a while. So, yeah, I'm assuming this is going to be the UFO. What? It's a. I don't know. Look, come see. There wasn't any time. Yanking him out the sleeping bag and onto his feet, the girl dragged him all the way downstairs and rushed to slip into her shoes, not bothering to tie her hair into the usual ponytail. Hurry up! All right. Any longer and she'd snap his neck, you assume. So he swiftly tied his laces and sprinted out the front door as well. Yeesh, what's up there? Following her pointed finger directed towards the sky, it couldn't be any clearer. It was originally a distant sight from the plane, hazy enough to be assumed to be a strange dream, and he found himself staring directly at the large vessel in the sky, slowly spinning in place and basking in the moonlight. That's the UFO, he mumbled under his breath, struggling to believe his own words. UF what? UFO, unidentified flying object. That. The two couldn't look away, both feeling their hearts drop a little as the vessel's spinning suddenly halted. They began edging east. Not long passed until it tilted ever so slightly, and they both yelped at the sight of its gradual descent. Where's it going? Hey, get back! Ah! And before Nate knew it, she took off down the street. Noelle! Come on! Thankfully, the roads were all barren this time of night, save for a few cars returning home from extra late shifts. Noelle wasn't entirely sure where she was going. All she knew was to head east, leaving the familiar neighborhood she caught glimpses of from the taxi, and instead entering a far older part of town. Nate trailed behind, albeit a bit slower than his more athletic twin, but his motivation was all there. Even if his thin pair of pajamas served little use in protecting him from the stinging cold of the night. They passed by a church, the boy stealing a quick glance at the grand, somewhat eerie structure, before they entered the forest, lush greenery as far as the eye could see. And Noel's own eyes lost the UFO. God's sake! Also, I'm doing the mapping in my head because I know the layout of St. Petersburg quite well. So they live in a place called Saltmon, which is more of like a regular American style suburb. And they've gone east, so they've gone to a place called Eastpine, which is this very old, rustic-looking place, which has the church. And then even further east than that, you get to Gloombell Forest. So I assume that's where they are basically. He stopped to take a breather. Nate attempted to talk in between heavy pants and soon giving up. He planned to suggest turning back once he got it together, but before he knew it, Noelle was out and running again. Oh, come on! We're nearly there! Noelle, in fact, had no way of telling if they were nearly there or not. Still, she persisted anyway, getting across the bridge above the river connected to the forest trail, only to dodge said trail entirely and run deeper into the woods. Up above the treetops, Nate swore he could make out several faint sparkles. Not stars, he knew that. The UFO had left something in its path. Noelle! What? Agitated, the girl reluctantly turned back towards Nate, who only just caught up to her. Her teeth gritted as she hissed. Stop being a wuss. We're nearly... A thud was heard, one of the blue sparkles having fallen into a patch of grass nearby. Both twins stared up to find the source. Met with hail instead, thousands of these crystals raining down from the sky. What? She didn't waste any time. One hand grabbed Nate's sleeve, whilst the other got to work creating a solid blanket of ice, summoning the material from thin air. shielding them from the sudden barrage of tiny gems. Noel held the ice up high, the sound of crystals slamming against the cold surface ringing through the forest. Thankfully, the rainfall soon ceased. You all right? She asked immediately, releasing the death grip she had on the startled boy. I think so. He quickly nodded, stepping away from the umbrella she created. He'd grown to get used to that, the one thing he'd be able to predict coming from her. Yokai were known to have all sorts of different powers, after all. But he couldn't get far. Noel yanked him as soon as another crash boomed elsewhere. Wind loudly wailing through the trees to the point some leaves had been torn right off. What now? So this is interesting. That he's saying he couldn't get used to that. The one thing he'd be able to predict coming from her. Yokai were known to have all sorts of different powers after all. Is he saying that as if he's used to the powers that Noel is demonstrating because he's used to yokai? Or maybe Noel actually is a yokai? I don't know. This is just a complete guess at this point. Depending on the way you read that sentence. UFO, dummy! Probably crashed! She hissed, many crystals that now littered the ground rolling away in reaction to the impact. Soon silence took over, both of the children hesitant to say anything. Instead, Noel followed the source of the sounds of the crash. Running even further into the forest, only to come to a halt at the side of a steep cliff. Hey, get over here! I found it! What, you did? Nate couldn't deny his own curiosity, following the girl and wincing any time a gem would be crushed into his feet. She held an arm out to ensure he wouldn't go toppling over the edge of the cliff, both of them staring down at the sight below. It lay there, a few miles away, so any ideas about getting closer were instantly rejected, but up here was all they needed. The crystals illuminated the scene, highlighting the growing cloud of smoke that plagued more and more of the once clear sky. The vessel remained lifeless now, its only lights flickering in bright red before completely shutting down. Still as a rock in the middle of a desolate prairie. So that's interesting. They've come to a cliff now. I don't think the cliff was... Other than it was a cliff accessible in the forest in the game. So this is some creative liberties being taken, I think. Unsure what to make of the situation, the brunette glanced towards Noel, who in return only laughed. Oh man, do you think there's a yokai in there? He gave a shaky, uneasy laugh in return. His gaze returned to the sorry state the UFO was in. UFOs usually have aliens, not yokai, he murmured. Aliens? She'd never heard of aliens before, assuming her fellow yokai... Okay, there we go. Fellow yokai. Meaning she is a yokai. Now that is interesting. I'm not sure how that works with them being twins. We're going to have to find that out. And that was a detail that I must have either overlooked it when I was reading the first time. Or I've just forgotten it since I last read it. But this is why I like doing these reading things out loud. And this goes for when I do fan gameplays as well, because it just forces me to read every single word and not skip over it. And also, if you spot me pausing for a few seconds, it's because I want to take in the text, go over it again. So apologies for that. Yeah, that'll be an interesting thing to learn more about. And also, a bit earlier we learned as well that Nate was by himself for a while, and Noel sort of showed up later. So to learn what that's all about as well. Spotting a crystal by her feet, her grin soon returned, picking it up and raising it to her face. Hey, look, same color as my hair. Careful, it looks sharp. Nate waited for any sign of her accidentally cutting herself. Then no such fate came to arise. He had to be vigilant, much to her dismay. The whole UFO fiasco keeping you on edge only worsened that desire, proven by a shiver trickling down his spine, the forest's gloomy atmosphere being one of the last things he wanted right now. Nearby bush rustled, the news brought to light by Noel's abrupt yelp. What? There's an alien! she insisted despite having hardly any idea what the said creatures looked like, dropping the crystal from the fray. Okay, that's it. Nate finally had enough, linking arms with her and starting the long walk back home. Hey, come on, Noelle whined, taking one last peek at the UFO crash behind her. She'd come back tomorrow, she thought. Technically later today, their mother would kill them if she found out they were outside of this hour. Especially since they barely knew the area. Emerging from the bush, an unruly head of hair didn't bother to shake off the leaves that had stuck to its curls. Approaching one of the many crystals spotted from everywhere among the glass. This one would do nicely, the boy grinned at the image in his mind, and that toothy smile only widened further as he got a better look beyond the cliff. Another thing on the to-do list. A feline had been waiting on the windowsill, growing more and more impatient until the boy finally returned, not bothering to lift its head up right away. It couldn't resist pats, however, softly purring once the back of its ears were lightly scratched. Now going through the effort of keeping its eyes locked onto its owner. He sat cross-legged on the creaky wooden floorboards, holding a thin rope to switch on a lantern hanging from the ceiling. He'd been meaning to clean up for a while now, grumbling as that consequence came back to bite him, as he couldn't find what he was looking for anywhere. Put away in one of the many boxes of random junk, it finally showed up, both the other piece and the tool needed to put it all together. The crystal laid still on the table. A sapphire, he assumed, even when its origin was unclear. Poking a tiny hole straight through, he moved on to the next step, threading the string right through and tying the ends into a secure knot. The crimson thread hung from his neck, the crystal hitting against his shirt with every step he took, and he couldn't be more pleased. Like it? He asked the feline, who frankly couldn't care less, turning the other way. The boy rolled his eyes, sticking out his tongue. He'd go back tomorrow, he thought. Technically, might hit today. Okay, so come to the end of another chapter, and the boy we've been introduced to here, who I suspect is the narrator of the first chapter, the boy who runs into a deer. Buck Hazeltine. No. He is the favourite character of the author of the story, Hazel. And yeah, this is a fan fiction about him. Because he's a character in Yokai Watch 3. He's one of the main characters. I suppose you call him a deuteragonist. You don't play as him, but he's basically the main character who you don't play as in the story. And the stone here in Yokai Watch 3 is called the UFO stone, and that stone has the power to allow the person wearing it to see yokai, just like the Yokai Watch. So from here, it'd be interesting to see, because it looks like in this case he has some sort kind of plan. Does he know about the yokai yet in this timeline? We don't know. Because in the game, he assumes they're aliens until he's explained by Nate that they are actually yokai. Okay, so I'm gonna read the next chapter. Given how much time has passed, I'm hoping to have time to read 2 more chapters, including this one, in this video. So that way I'll have read at least one chapter that's completely new to me. And because it's getting quite late and I want to get this video uploaded before I go to sleep. Anyway, chapter 3 is What Shone from the Sky. Summary is that the twins explore more of St. Petersburg, but Noelle has other plans. Both twins reached to pinch at the other's arm. They were not dreaming. Okay, Noelle started, slapping her knees before standing back up, beginning to pace around her room and collect her thoughts. So you're saying that whatever was in the sky was absolutely, definitely, without a doubt, one of those UFO thingy-majiggies? No weird-looking plane? Planes never look like that, so Nate shrugged, covering his mouth with his hand once a yawn slipped past. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Nope. Much to the brunette's dismay, she wouldn't go down without a fight, the boy fearing any and every plan that came to her mind. It looked like it'd explode any minute. And did you hear the crash? It was like pow! No way anyone is surviving that. Shut up. Mom and Dad are sleeping. She ignored him. Only explanation for a survivor would be that it's a yokai. Man, I should be a detective. She grinned, scrambling to sit down in front of him once more. Maybe I'll go have a chat with them? No, hang on. Nate's eyes widened as the joke flew over his head, quickly grabbing onto her wrist in a silent plea to listen to him for once. Don't do anything stupid. Come on, you're being reckless. I don't want you to... He cut himself off, swallowing a hard lump that had formed in his throat. Noelle's face fell for a mere second. I was joking, she teased, even reaching out to lightly jab his arm, an action he had minimal reaction to. Okay, maybe she was being a bit careless. She recognized that. Fine, sorry. I'm sorry for forcing you out of your bed yesterday. It was cold. Sorry. That plea of forgiveness proved to be the final one, the two siblings freezing as soon as the bedroom door clicked. What time do you call this? Their mother stepped in, reaching a hand to rub one of her eyes. Mom! Noelle's usual beaming smile returned, springing to her feet and rushing to explain the news. There was what's it called? A UFO. Yeah, one in the sky. We saw it from the window. Hey, okay, shh. Even with the rude awakening, the woman still chuckled at her daughter's excited nature, raising a single finger to her lips. At least keep it down a bit. Your father's sleeping. He has work, remember? Oh, shoot. Okay. Sheepishly, the girl tilted her head back towards Nate, who was already slipping into a sleeping bag and silently praying he'd get a few more hours to rest tonight. Sorry, Mom. She took it as her cue to go back to bed as well, silence enveloping the house once more. Why, hello, citizens of BBQ. You're watching the afternoon news at 4. Boy, do we got a major scoop on our hands. Ain't any of y'all listeners residents of the St. Petersburg area? Well, there's no doubt you'll have heard the big old explosion down yonder, just a few 10 or so miles from town. Isn't it an earthquake? Nope. Some of the more daring folk are already looking to see for themselves, and the eyewitness reports say it's, drumroll please, a UFO. Told ya. Noel grinned. Their mother wouldn't take any of her smug behaviour that afternoon. Even with both their kids claiming they spotted such a vessel in the sky, it was still difficult to believe, given how she was still yet to see it with her own eyes. Yet right before her, showcased to not only her but the rest of the world, it was all every news channel was talking about right now. A real UFO crashing into the area in the dead of night. You're supposed to be unpacking, she gently reminded, trying to drive her away from the current topic. But I did! She did not. The moving van arrived earlier in the morning, so she'd finally have a bed to rest on tonight, but for now it was used as a shelter for stuffing all her belongings under, hoping her mother wouldn't notice. There'd be no space otherwise. And she didn't need a lot of things at the moment. She was still waiting on that damn sketchbook. There's nothing to do and I'm bored. Unless you need help or something, then can we please go explore? Please? The woman paused, previously sorting the cutlery and plates, and she hummed and thought. Notice that empty shelf? The box in there has on it! And she was off. Knees sliding against the carpet, they halted just before they hit the cardboard, the girl tearing the box open and peering inside. It was neatly organized, it must have been her dad that packed them, as if his countless vinyls inside weren't enough proof, which she didn't into the shelves with a bit more effort than appreciated. As well as that, many small photo frames were stacked on top of each other. Noelle's smile softening a bit, she picked one of them up to take a closer look. Oh? Her mother butted in and she took the box for herself, laughing breathlessly while checking over the images. Actually, I'll deal with this. You go explore with Nate, okay? There's some cash in my purse. She paused, offering the smallest of smiles. I did convert it. Don't worry. Wasn't worrying, her daughter mumbled, unable to ignore the hint of guilt from her mum's previous chuckle. The photo she found wasn't anything strange, sure. She had no memory of it being taken. The reflection it held staring back at her with brown hair. The colour she hadn't worn in forever now. It still seemed fairly normal. Nate! She called from the bottom of the stairs. browse this together since she wouldn't be surprised if her brother was still lazing in bed. Typical. And bring the watch with you, their mother demanded. Stupid thing, Nate mumbled as soon as they were out of the house in his mum's sight, making desperate attempts at hiding the bulky device under his sleeve. By the way, shout out if any of you watching Whether Yokai watch in public. I've not worn mine in public, but I've seen people who do. Well, not in real life, but on social media. Friends. One day I will. Maybe when I'm in Japan, because people are more likely to recognize it as a yokai watch and not think, what is that weird thing he's got on his wrist? Because, yeah, yokai watch was massive in Japan, but not so much in the rest of the world. Although, it did have a fair amount of success. Still got a nice cult following. What's the matter? The blue-haired girl, in short, her voice was as lilted and teasing as possible, skipping a little in her steps with her usual grin plastered over her face. The watch was nowhere near subtle, the outline of the material still somewhat visible under his funnel. It's to protect you, you know. She repeated their mother's words like a broken record, words she'd overheard countless times. Thankfully, she dodged the short end of the stick, as instant prone as she was, and she couldn't deny the amusement she'd always felt with the circumstances they faced. On the other hand, Nate was more than used to being treated like fragile glass, so he chose to accept such lifestyles. We haven't gone north yet. He took a peek in the opposite direction. The neighborhood wasn't that big. From here he could see a crossing across the main road that led to a farm, while the north instead laid out numerous shops. In between them he could even catch glimpses of the sea. So the farm, I don't know why I can't remember what the farm's called off the top of my head, but the farm is on the south side. The north part is called North Beach, and that's got most of the shops. And then the sea is north of that. Nothing south, so we might as well. Fittingly named North Beach, yep, there we go. That part of town proved to be more bustling than expected. But by the way, all the music of Yokai Watch 2 is good, but North Beach is an amazing track. So is Southmond. I was actually contemplating whether to put music over this reading, but I ultimately decided not to because I think it would be a hassle trying to fit different music to different moods. But feel free to, put music on a different tab if you want. That might make it more atmospheric. That part of town proved to be more bustling than expected. The twins barely able to take 2 steps into the marketplace before hearing the words UFO and aliens tossed about, accompanied by protest signs too, arguments breaking out about the stall owners unable to sell their wares due to all the ruckus. Biting her lip, the younger of the twins glanced towards her brother, who was already lifting his headphones up to his ears. Want to head somewhere else? He nodded, and off they went. Thankfully, it was only the marketplace that had such scenes. A large empty field was up ahead, mainly used for picnics instead of protests, the angry mobs trying and failing to make a statement filling the streets instead. Though majorly focused on the UFO sighting, Noah spotted a few black sheep aiming to bring up an entirely different movement. Yeesh, that guy really hates rainbows. Nate's head snapped towards the sign in question, his heart dropping a little at the sight. The staring didn't go unnoticed, unfortunately, and the man scanned them both from head to toe, grimacing. Unfortunate. Noah wasn't taking any of it. Who the fuck do you think you... Hey! Stop. Let's just go. One tug of Noel's arm and they both swiftly made their exit. He considered returning home right there, as far away as they comfortably be. Safe, too. But all their plans to shove that guy off the harbor's edge were thrown out the window. She frowned at that. Nay? Far too many people were around to safely shout out her next question, so she quickly removed his headphones to whisper. Why do people talk so weird here? What do you mean? Like that? Taking a few large steps forward, she gave herself enough room to provide a demonstration. Like, howdy, did you hear about that darn explosion? That's so, darn tootin', or whatever. That's what the lady on the news was like. It's just how they talk here. They tried looking around for examples himself, far better ones than the world's horrible interpretation. Bringing his headphone back down to his neck, the busy marketplace being long gone now, a few strangers' eyes were also taking peeks at the situation opposite the side. So, let me get this straight. The police officer rubbed the bridge of his nose, double and triple checking the notes he had already written down on his pad, his partner behind him desperately trying not to laugh or snort. You're saying that an alien stole your fries when you weren't looking, you only saw it run away. With brown boots, correct? Yes, sir, brown boots, the man reporting the incident sighed, his foot restlessly tapping the concrete floor as his patients wore thin. So you're gonna find it or what? Surely I at least get a refund or something. He only got an unamused glare for that. No, but I'm gonna have to rat you up for wasting our time. This whole UFO talk is driving me insane. Are you kidding me? Noel had searched up images of aliens earlier, and they did not have boots like the man claimed. Yokai, on the other hand. Tomas can't tell the difference between an alien and a yokai, she snickered, her face falling once her words had no audience. It wasn't uncharacteristic of Nate to be distant or even blatantly ignore many things, but not like this, and his stare locked onto the watch. He didn't have any issue with showing it off anymore. What's wrong? It's too quiet. Okay, you love quiet. Not that. Quickly glancing up, it was enough to register the nearby field, the boy instantly heading towards it. Noelle followed suit, her face scrunching up a little while she watched him hold his wrist up to the sky. Yeah, nothing. The radar's not working. Shaky sigh slipped past the colour leaving his face. No. Mom's gonna kill me. Don't be stupid, gimme! Even if the two of them were flies, they both knew deep down them when the wind swapped them away. Noel yanked his wrist to get a closer look, staring down at the peculiar device. She did think something was off. Usually the radar would vibrate if there were any yokai around, excluding ones Nate befriended. Did you get more medals and didn't tell me? No. Oh, okay, Letting go of Nate's wrist, the girl tried digging into his phone pockets instead. So, what the? Dude, stop that. So this is excluding ones Nate befriended. That must be a change made by the story then, because that's not. I don't think that's the thing in the. No, it's definitely not a thing in main canon. Well, okay. Letting go of Nate's wrist, the girl tried digging into his phone pockets instead. What the? Dude, stop that. Yep, no medals. Her hands jerked away as soon as the search was completed, giving her shoulders a shrug. Next on the list was to check her own wrist, the bracelet nearly identical to her brother's, containing not only beads but small fragments of her own medal. Usually the medals were all a symbol of a human's friendship with the yokai, the holder able to summon them at will. Nate never took advantage of that fact. That bracelet was all he had, and summoning was useless anyway. The twins were glued to the hip. Maybe because I'm around most of the time, it just messed with the sensors. Maybe. He wasn't sure about the technicalities of the device, but even if she was joking, that didn't sound like a bad assumption. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. Noel clapped her hands together for a brief moment, Nate finding himself being lightly pushed right after. You go walk back home by yourself to see if anything changes, okay? I want to explore the market. He was skeptical, of course, though if it meant potentially fixing the watch, what other options did he have? Okay, just don't get lost. I won't. Her smile widened and off he went. Perfect. While Nate went back south, Noelle waited a little while longer before heading east. She cut through the park to get back to the forest, she thought, skipping over the East Pine area and hopefully finding the same spot as yesterday. She'd only take a peek, photos too, as last night was far too dark to accurately capture the crash site at all. So long as nothing happens, Nate will have no reason to complain. On the contrary to North Beach, the streets of Southmont proved to be mostly empty at times, save for a few people walking their dogs and jogging. It was pleasant, more than that, and Nate's headphones came off as the ease washed over him. It all soon dispersed, most likely, the sun having disappeared long ago. hiding behind the dark clouds consuming the sky. The boy's nose wrinkled slightly. A drop of water landing on it. Gotta get home soon. Rah. He stopped. Nate swore he had heard things until that odd sound occurred once more, coming from the lower half of the picket fence. Oh, hey. Originally stiff, his face softens entirely at the sight he found a small, orange cat. Its head stuck in between the gaps of the fence. He crouched down onto his knees to get a better look and hopefully even help the poor thing, only to jump back so he was hits. It's okay. Let me help, he whispered, scratching the feline under its chin in an attempt to soothe it, his other hand carefully helping to wedge its head out from the wood. It took a little while, a careful act to ensure neither of them got hurt, but a smile came to Nate's face. He was successful, holding the now free cat in his lap. There you go. The cat's wide green eyes stared at the boy who was now patting its back. Where's your home? He took. One swipe at his face and the feline scrambled away, slipping into an alley and leaving Nate bewildered more than anything. His cheeks stung, breath catching in his throat, once red stained, his fingertips. His throat. Breath catching in his throat, once red stained, his fingertips upon touching the scar. I'm struggling to pass the sentence. His cheeks stung, breath catching in his throat, once red stained, his fingertips. Once red stained his fingertips upon touching the scars. Okay, there we go. It is a grammatically correct sentence. I just didn't know how to interpret it correctly at first. He should be more careful, his father lightly chided, assigned to tend Nate's injuries as soon as the man got home. The boy's mother already tried cleaning him up, the bleeding having stopped in those few hours when he waited for his father's return, and they both knew he'd do a better job at handling the situation. He was supposed to. He's a doctor after all. All right, here we are, he whispered more to himself than to his son, placing a wide plaster over the parallel scars line across his cheek. His frequent sniffing didn't go unnoticed either. Also, I'm thinking I might have misremembered. I think I actually haven't read this chapter before. I think I only read the first 2 chapters last time instead of the first 3. Because this is very unfamiliar. His frequent sniffling didn't go unnoticed either. Nate sucked his teeth, his eyes drifting to the medical supplies scattered across the table. There's a cat. A cat scratched me. As expected, his father's eyes widened, and not in anger. Well, that explains a lot. Everything, actually. His head jerked to the side, sneezing into his elbow and readjusting his glasses right after. Where's Nosy? Said she was going to go to the market, he explained, though her words sounded less and less convincing the more he thought about it. He didn't bring it up, though, not wanting to worry. After all, he knew exactly where she'd be otherwise. Mum? Nate decided to save his dad from his allergies by joining his mother on his couch, in doing so willingly subjecting himself to her fussing. I'm fine now, he winced. He whined once she grabbed his chin. Just checking. She had to hold back a laugh, making sure his cheek wasn't the only thing that was injured. Okay. What is it? The watch, revealing his wrist. They both looked down at the attached device. The radar was silent, as it should be at home, but that wasn't the issue. The radar stopped working. I'm sorry, I may have broken it, but I don't know how. Oh, let me see. She wasn't bothered at all, snatching her reading glasses from the end table to get a better look at the thing. It didn't seem broken. The time told was still accurate and ticking away, and his mother took a moment to think. Could you leave it with me for a bit? I'll try taking a better look when I'm not so tired. She received a nod for a response, and as if on cue. Now that is a genuine grammatical error, and to the credit of Hazel, this is the first I've noticed. This isn't supposed to be on cue, but it's supposed to be on cue, C-U-E. Pronounced the same, but different words. She covered her mouth to allow the yawn, growing afterwards. Curse the jet lag. He frowned. Get some rest, Mum, Nate ordered, standing up once he removed the watch and set it down the end table, even going far enough to turn off the TV to ensure she'd actually have a nap. His father's head perked up like a meerkat at the mention of his wife being tired, which Nate giggled too. He knew she was in good hands. I should go find Noel, he muttered, the rain picking up and relentlessly tapping against the windows. Watching him scurry to get his shoes on, his mother quipped, "Bring an umbrella with you," as if that were an obvious plan of action. Soon he was out the door, knowing exactly where to go. Come on, do something. Under a tree, Noel sat right by the cliff's edge, the leaves and branches just barely guarding her from the rainfall. Temperature was the least of her worries, but she couldn't help but wonder if this was all still a waste of time. The UFO just sat there, police cars pulling up to it in the distance, though she had no idea what they planned to do with the vessel once they got there. If only she took a professional camera. The blurry one still built into her phone would do for now. The UFO clearly didn't plan on going anywhere, so she could come back and take better pictures tomorrow. Well, time to head home, the girl thought to herself, returning to the forest where the trees proved to be surprisingly decent shelter. Yesterday's crystals remained lifeless, the lighter ones slowly rolling along the grass as the soft wind hit them. She wouldn't take any home with her, she thought, otherwise the aliens might try hunting her down. Or yokai, or whatever the police are mindlessly searching for. Despite her confidence, Noelle could never ignore the nerves clawing away at her. The forest giving off an aura that would only intensify that. She'd better get home soon. The breeze felt particularly odd today, and the girl's eyes scanned every tree she passed, every bush and stump, as paranoid as it looked. And her search was not fruitless. No, peeking out from behind the tree, one wider than the others, a shadowy figure blended in with the darkness. Nor bit her lip, taking a step back with a curled fist. She waited for something, anything, but whatever was watching her just stared and stared and stared. It felt familiar, in a sense. She was not close to any of the yokai. Chances of that happening were slim to none. After all, most of them had left this world a long time ago. But here, right now, two of them were standing face to face. Though the one she faced didn't look welcoming in the slightest. Okay, that's quite a lore drop. Chances of that happening were slim to none because most of them left this world a long time ago. Which is interesting because in the main series of yokai, the world's teeming with yokai. Her foot misstepped. Her mouth yelped, and off she went, tumbling into a ditch, into something. Ow! Once the adrenaline passed, she seethed and gripped her head. Passersby also trying to recover from the collision. Noelle soon noticed the boy laying beside her. Her leg draped over his back, but her focus laid elsewhere. The figure was gone. His presence loomed over the ditch for a mere moment before retreating. Hey, are you... Trying to check up on the victim, all she got was a harsh knee to the stomach. Immediately keeling over as the boy made his escape. "Asshole! Get back here!" she yelled, helplessly watching that wild head of hair get away. The girl tried processing it all, but struggled, distracted by the stinging pain in her abdomen and the newly formed cuts on her limbs. So, whatever this presence was is different to the boy who, well, wild head of hair that can only refer to one boy in particular. Shakily, she stood up, resulting in more winces. With her hand clutched onto her stomach, she knew she had no other choice but to keep going, grumbling with every step. "There you are! I knew it!" Nate huffed on the forest bridge, spotting his sister stumbling back towards him. All his plans to scold her drained away. "Wait, what happened?" Nothing, I'm fine." It's... Feeling his arm around her, holding her steady, she forced an artificial grin, playfully sticking her tongue out. "I just tripped. Nothing to get so worked up about." He rolled his eyes. "You're impossible." Still, even when it tired them both out, he helped her walk back home, ensuring the umbrella stayed held above her head. "What happened to you, though?" "Oh, nothing. It was just... Oh, no. What happened to you, though?" "Oh, nothing. It was just a cat." Hopefully they won't get in trouble for this. We're going to do... It is getting on a bit, but I do want to do one more chapter, I think. Because, yeah, there are 23 chapters in this. I want to read it. I'm eager to read it as quick as possible because already there's so much intriguing stuff, little crumbs of lore here. So chapter 4 is Down to Earth. Summary. The twins face consequences for sneaking out, but of course this doesn't stop Noelle from misbehaving anyway. They were grounded. Kind of. Their mother only stated that she didn't want them going outside for a few days, at least not by themselves. They still have to finish unpacking after all, and the whole situation regarding the UFO only heightened her worries. Noelle tried complaining to her dad, but he felt the same way. She's only looking out for you, he reminded, working away at cleaning the cuts on his daughter's arm. He'd already spent the day tending to the patients, so coming home being greeted with his own injured children was less than ideal. How did this even happen? I thought you went to the marketplace. So, she seethed, the man assuming he'd accidentally hurt her somehow, but his fears were proven false when she chuckled. I did, but I want to try find the UFO as well. There's a forest in East Pine that looks over the prairie, and the UFO was there. I got pics, look. Swiping her phone out of her pocket, she scrambled to show that the photo is somewhat misused in the rain. Ah, I see. Well, as long as you aren't getting any closer than that, he murmured, though he still smiled. Always so adventurous, Nosy. Well, the news could have been lying, so I wanted to see for myself. She bashfully turned away, grumbling a little at the silly nickname. She wouldn't dare tell him what a yokai she saw. Both twins would be on house arrest for at least a week that way. And I won't get any closer, I swear. Good, he hummed, wrapping some gaze. Is it gauze or I think it's gauze actually. Wrapping some gauze around her arms, plasters just wouldn't be enough. Though I must admit, I'm not sure how much I believe you. Seeing how you didn't look exactly like this all the time when you were little. She swallowed a lump in her throat. Remember the big tree in our old garden? One time you tried climbing up it just to immediately fall out. I used to get a heart attack since I thought you broke your heart. Maybe there's aliens that control the UFO, she quickly quipped. The police can't find them in there anymore, so maybe they're walking around town. He blinked, surprised by her sudden theory. Oh, it doesn't seem entirely implausible. I was meaning to tell you, actually. He paused for dramatic effect, leaning in and raising his hand as if to tell a secret. I saw one on the way home, he whispered. Wait, really? He nodded, stifling a chuckle at her enthusiasm. I had to walk home since the car stood not here yet, and on the way I swear there was one staring at me. It's hard to tell in the rain, though. With their injuries tended to, Noelle jumped off her bed to take a peek out the window, scanning the streets below. You made sure it didn't follow you home, right? Nosy. It's not going to kidnap us. He sighed, shaking his head in amusement. Now I think about it, it probably wasn't even real. Just some kid pulling a silly prank. He crossed his arms. It did have boots, after all. She froze. Boots? Oh, before I forget. Pulling open one of the drawers into the nightstand, he'd hidden something there before, feeling that now was the best time to reveal it. Ta-da! The sketchbook! Noelle practically jumped back towards the bed, snatching the broad item and flicking through the fresh pages, in awe of their quantity. Thanks, Dad! Anything for you, hon. Now, you better get some rest, and remember, I've got more hours now, so don't give me a headache by coming home all injured. He teased, running a hand through her hair and taking the scrunchie out as if prompting her to go to bed. Oh, also, in Yokai Watch 3, the reason they are moving to PVQ is indeed because of Nate's dad's new job, but it's not as a doctor. It's just a sort of generic office worker. In Japanese, you call it a salaryman. So I'm interested to see if the doctor detail is going to be significant in any way, other than so far being able to more expertly cure the various injuries. Treat the injuries. Can't really cure an injury, I guess. Aha, she forced a laugh. In truth, she wanted to hang out with him for just a little longer, but she didn't want to push it. How was work today? He paused before he got out the door, his hand resting on the frame. It was Fine. It was fine, he muttered, leaving soon afterwards. And it was probably shit then. The next few days were as uneventful as they could be. All the news stations never shut up about the UFO, but the reports were all the same. Mindless theories and conclusions leading to nowhere. The entities of who or what even controlled the vessel all being subjective speculation. Laura was conspiring theories of her own, sticking notes scattered across her wall that she fittingly linked together with string, as if she were a true detective on a case. On the other hand, Nate tried staying far away from all of that, blowing the dust off his guitar and even adding a few more doodles to his wooden exterior, primarily stars. He also made sure to water all his plants. He was not going to forget and let a few die this time. He talked to them from time to time, silly as it sounds, and imagine he were talking to real people instead. Which was kind of interesting because Nate is quite interested in solving mysteries in the game. But obviously, this version of Nate is a lot more sort of reserved, introverted. And he has some plants, which he doesn't have in the game. Instead of a week until school starts, he'd be alone for another year once again. Nora refused to go no matter how much they wanted to try convincing her. He didn't blame her though. With how he always described it, no wonder she wished to opt out. I guess that's the joy of being a yokai. Actually, if you've ever watched Gigan no Kitaro, in the original theme song, one of the lyrics in it is that yokai don't have to go to school, which I imagine sounds amazing to a young child. He'd been offered countless times to be homeschooled just like her, but he didn't want to put that burden on his mother. After all, he did promise he'd make friends in St. Petersburg. This was his only chance. I saw a yokai in the forest. Noah decided to finally spill the beans to her brother. The first page of her brand new sketchbook being entirely filled with a rough sketch of the creature, his eyes highlighted with a line pencil. It looked unevolved, but bigger. Nate took the sketchbook from her, staring down at the drawing, his mouth open in an attempt to speak, but the girls told the spotlight instead. Her dad told me he saw an alien with brown boots, like the crazy guy from the marketplace. I didn't see the yokai's feet, but maybe it's the same guy. The conclusion came tumbling out, resulting in an awkward chuckle following soon after. Or maybe not. Anyone's guess is as good as mine. Maybe. He wasn't sure what to make of the mystery, raising an eyebrow. I thought unevolved yokai stay in the yokai world, though. That's what I thought too. Maybe it got lost. Her eyes squinted. To evolve, a yokai must find its purpose. So maybe that's what this one was doing. But I don't think it's friendly, she mumbled. The way it was looking at me just bleh. She shivered at the memory. That's an interesting detail as well, because, I mean, evolution of yokai. For one, not all yokai can evolve. Ones that do, you'd have to get them to a certain level, or fuse them with another yokai or an item. So this would change in the mechanics of how yokai work here. Most of them seem to be in the yokai world. Since it seems like some event years ago, I'm not sure if that's connected to what we saw in the very first chapter, the burning of the Hazeltine mansion. Just as well grounded then. Nora didn't like that response at first, but the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. Nick continued. We can stay away from trouble. And that they did. Grapes, cheese, nuts. Oh, don't even think about munching on nuts on the way since Dad's allergies. The twins said in unison, their mother giving a sheepish grin in return. Days passed and no one finally decided it was time to unground them, their first task being a trip to the marketplace. No way it would be as busy as on the weekends, putting Nate at ease. Even then, they planned to get in, grab what they needed, and get out. Maybe stopping for ice cream on the way home. By the end of it, they had some cash to spare, and with empty stomachs, they set off for chicken skewers. Tell Mum that we had pasta for lunch. Nate asked, his sister a bit dumbfounded that he would lie for seemingly no reason. Why? Dad's allergies, he repeated from earlier, waving the skewer in front of her with a small smile. He's hopeless. Okay, so uh, the dad's allergic to nuts and chicken. Oh. No shit, man! I'd kill myself if I wasn't allowed to eat chicken. This is good. Noel exclaimed, finding a nearby bench to take a seat on, then copying her movements. Surely the chickenness will go away once he gets home, no? He shrugged. Better safe than sorry. The two could only stare at each other for a few seconds before erupting into a fit of giggles, happily chowing down on their food. In the corner of her eye, Noel suspected she was being watched. Ooh! Her wariness wasn't for naught, the girl beaming down on the little cat, keeping a close eye on them both. The tip of its tail slowly swishing from side to side. Hey, little guy! Come here! She eagerly patted the spot beside her. Nate's brows knitted together, and he couldn't overlook the fact that the feline was staring at him in particular, especially once it jumped onto the bench. Screw Dad's allergies. Ah, hi! Noel's grin only widened impossibly further as the cat settled itself onto her lap, its nose twitching as it tried sniffing the skewer, which she raised higher. Noel? Shh! It likes me! She hissed, gently scratching the cat's chin. Maybe it took. Hey! Nate nearly jumped out of his skin from her sudden scalp. The little animal had snatched his half-eaten skewer by its teeth and run away, his sister far more enraged than he was. You cheeky little... Get back here! Noel cried, overshadowed by other noises nearby. Stop! Thief! With her back turned to the scene with the feline, the nearby stall owner yelled out towards a hooded figure breaking through the crowds. Nate swallowed a lump in his throat, returning his headphones to his ears. What's going on? The girl didn't respond right away, fixated on a bigger scene rather than the conniving cat. Brown boots, she murmured, blinking as the suspected biter darted almost out of sight. The individual unintelligible from behind. Brown boots. Nate, it's the alien, come on! For a second there I thought it was Noel saying stop thief to the cat. But no, different thief. What? Before he knew it, she impulsively sprinted after the thief, the boy himself springing off the bench and giving it his all to catch up to her, not forgetting the shopping bag. He was only able to single her out by that head of blue hair. Nosy! Ignoring his beckons to return, the girl continued to chase the supposed alien, struggling with how surprisingly fast it proved itself to be. As they passed through the marketplace, the spectators and stalls lined up along the street. She didn't have enough time to react to its retaliation. The alien freed one of his hands from its grasp on the hood to carelessly pull out several boxes of fruit. Wah! Okay, so it's interesting. Is this really an alien? I'm not sure, to be honest. So it's a supposed alien. And it's going after fruit? Well, eventually Nate arrived only to find her collapsed amidst the falling boxes, seething at a few new scrapes on her knees. He crouched down beside her. Sorry. You alright? Uh-huh, she huffed, her tone hardly backing up her answer. It didn't take long until people pretended to pay no mind, walking past the scene now that the climax had ceased. Let me fix this. Nate got to work picking up the fruit boxes, apologizing to the frazzled stall owner numerous times in quick succession. But Noel's focus remained on something else. She snatched a strange object lying on the floor, one she swore the aliens must have dropped. It was a crystal, after all. One identical to the gems that fell from the sky the other night. This one served as a pendant, its crimson string, thin but firm. She didn't care about the cat anymore. This was her focus. Interesting. So, the fact that it's got the string through it indicates that, well, I'm sure you can come to the conclusion of who this alien is. But okay. The watch isn't broken, dear. Naismiller concluded as soon as she was done tinkering with it, finding him reading in his room and almost humming smugly at the sight. It was one of her own books after all, and she couldn't quite figure out if he loved them because he was biased, or biased if they were actually good. I think that's meant to be or, yeah, or if they were actually good. Taking out for a spin did nothing. I think there's just no yokai around. Internally, Nate cheered. Really? Oh well, he murmured, feigning defeat. She gave him a few perplexed blinks. Nevertheless, the woman clicked her tongue. Setting the watch aside for now. So, how was today? The market wasn't too busy, was it? It was okay, he admitted, a bit worried now that she was squinting at her eyes at his answer. Both that and his body language, he never realized he was fidgeting with his sleeve while his hands rested on the book. By the way, if you want to know why, because in the game, Yokai Watch 3, it's the same thing happens. The watch doesn't work at first. But the actual reason why in that case was because the regular Yokai Watch doesn't work in BBQ. You need the Yokai Watch Model U, which works across the globe rather than just in, well, Japan in the original version, or the country that you start in, west the town of Springdale is located, in the localized versions. I'm not sure if that'll be the same reason here, or if there'll be a different reason. But regardless, its mum doesn't seem to know anything about that. Market wasn't too busy, was it? It was okay, he admitted, a bit worried now that she was squinting her eyes at his answer. Both that and his body language, he never realised he was fidgeting with his sleeve while his hands rested on the book. She wasn't convinced. Did you take your iron tablets? Yes. Just checking, she insisted, resting her hand over his own. It was difficult for Nate to read her expression, but what she was thinking. Most times that was a struggle, but here it was especially strange. I'm fine, everything's just kinda overwhelming, he admitted, focusing on the window rather than his piercing gaze. I don't know. Don't worry about it. Of course, she only worried more. Something happened? No! He answered slipped straight out faster than he wanted to, his shoulders untensing themselves as he sighed. No, really, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I'm homesick or something. He shrugged. I don't know. I'll feel better tomorrow. He wouldn't dare say it, but he just wanted to be alone right now, completely. A brief silence fell into the room, the woman giving a sympathetic smile and a teasing pinch of the cheek. Okay, I get it. It's a big change, I know. You'll get used to it soon, honey. She grinned. If you want to explain it better, I'll be downstairs. With that, she took her leave. Nick rubbed at his cheek, letting his eyes briefly roll before returning to his book. Noelle, however, was glued to her desk. One hand held onto the crystal ball with an iron grip, while the other scribbled down little notes and diagrams, the girl grumbling every time the pencil had snapped. Phrases and supposedly random words that confused the average person, yet they were clear as day to her. Stealing, hood, stone, alien, 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 alien. That had been on everyone's mind for a week now, and like most phenomena, the UFO could be more from a revolution to a tacky fad. No one cared anymore. The structure itself was magnificent, yes, though journeying into the prairie would result in disappointed faces when the said explorers were greeted with silence. The structure was dormant, its once exhausted life now pale. No one didn't care, though. She was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what. Dad? Luminosity barely managed to sleep in through the girl's window, and upon inspection it proved to be headlights. A bit after 6 p.m., the period when she was told he'd finished work. Her pencil drummed against the table, momentarily rolling and hitting the bulky pencil sharpener. Nose could wait for now. Oh, hey, you alright? Noel stopped at the sound of her mother's voice, the shaky breath that followed whisking away and hiding. On top of the stairs, peeking out beneath the gaps of the banister, her face lifted, but for a brief moment at the sight of her father. Only for a moment. Fine. The drowsy man insisted, finding his face held in his wife's hands, who tutted and shook her head. You've overdone it again, haven't you? Goodness, how many patients today? Too many. Too many, she emphasized. I don't know what to do with you sometimes. Though her tone was only teasing. This wasn't new to Noel. Even in spring, there were often times where their father would come home in such a state. Nate had told her once that becoming a doctor was no less than challenging. And once you got there, that state was stationary. Sometimes she wondered why their dad didn't just choose a different job. She couldn't annoy him like this, she thought, as much as the itch that begged to ramble about the day's events proved to be nearly impossible to scratch away. He'd much rather be with his wife, a stark contrast to his daughter's sporadic nature. To his surprise, the distraction settled, glowing in the palm of her hand. What the? She whispered under her breath, a certain light glinting in her eyes at the sight of the shining stone. It began when she just turned away, planning to return to her room. Her route diverted to her brother instead. The stone's glowing. What? He slapped something in his bookshelf to voice how he prayed he'd be drawn from one fantasy to another. Hopefully one of Noel's erratic ideas again. Yet no closure came forth, only a blue gem waved from his face. He started glowing like just now. You never saw it do that before, did you? No. He resigned himself to this fate. It probably means nothing. Come on, I was reading. You're not listening. No, she was not. Noel's eyes remained locked onto the peculiar object, slowly spinning in place. Through that, the stone reacted, either shining brighter or dimming to nothing at all. I got it! Got what? I got it! She decided, giving the shortest of grins before clambering downstairs. I'm heading out. You what? Their mother was the first to respond, calling out from the living room and startling her half-asleep husband in her arms. Her son followed suit as expected, so she turned to him for answers. Nate? Sorry, I don't know either. He flashed some teeth, lips cut up in a sheepish smile. Does that serve as some worthwhile apology? We'll be back before dinner, promise. It is literally in the oven right now. Hey! The walls briefly rattled from the slam of the front door, silence being closed behind. Well then. Her voice turned exasperated, unsure how true Nate's claim would turn out to be. In actuality, he had no clue either. It's a compass, Noah declared, the twins finding themselves trudging along these pines roads once more. Thankfully to the girls, the streets were quiet this time of night. North Beach holding the majority of hangout spots and bars. Nobody to swoop in and steal the gem. Compasses do work like this, right? I'm thinking of the right thing. Nate simply nodded along. His lack of enthusiasm resulted in an eye roll. So it's pointing there? Stopping at the intersection by the church, Noel's eyes glinted with a sense of victory at the clear path ahead. This block was short-lived. The road up north was blocked by a chain-link fence. Several signs and warnings scattered about, as well as strange bouquets and used candles she found the sight of. Weird. Oh no, dead end. Nate raised his hands to surrender, gluing them right back to his sides from the glare she shot. He coughed to clear his throat. No, we're not going in. Pretty sure it's illegal. Oh, everything's illegal in your eyes, she huffed, sticking out her tongue. No, I'm not going in, doofus. Just want to take a peek. Following the fence, she kept the stone pointed north to know if it suddenly die out, stepping into the graveyard right behind the church. Nate made sure to follow. This place was giving him the creeps, and the longer he spent scanning his surroundings, the more that feeling intensified. I swear this is familiar. What, like deja vu? Maybe. He spent longer than initially desired, staring beyond that fence, the dense forest making it practically impossible to peer into. Maybe it was a similar spot he had imagined while reading one of his novels. Maybe it reminded him of the mountains behind his old school. He wasn't really sure. One faint memory came to mind, though the contents could hardly be deciphered. He was reading his book, that's all he could recall. Whoa, what's your step? Noah warned with a grin tied to her words, grabbing a tight hold of her brother's sleeve in case he were lost in his own world. They were long past the graveyard now, still following the chain-link fence, though their journey came to an end at the sight of the river before them. The fence stopped to make way for its currents, flowing into the deep forest to greet whatever the chains held within. Yeesh, get washed away here and you probably float back to Springdale. You'll drown before then. She considered hitting him for being a smart ass. Well, Noelle hung the gem round her neck by the string, clasping her hands together and taking a quick glance at the sky. Danger is a big no-no. I have principles, you know, and they're telling me to go home. Okay, so I'm trying to work out. He's reading his book so they can calm. And when I know where this graveyard is, it's a graveyard behind the church and close to where the forest is. And those principals have an on-off switch, clearly, Nate murmured under his breath, walking far away, far enough to go unheard. Mom said dinner's in the oven, so... Wait. He tilted his head. Wait, no way! Finding a hiding spot behind the tree, Noelle peered at the sight on display. She saw them from afar, like little ants, tiny creatures hoisting gems onto their backs and carrying them to who knows where. Noelle identified these beings right away, unevolved yokai, and thought it best not to disturb. Those are from the UFO, you know. She called out to spark some interest. Deaf ears listened. Unevolved yokai, interesting. Noelle, dinner. In a minute. Her head snapped back, the colour drained from her face. What? At first he thought he had something on his face. Reaching up to rub his cheek, from under his sleeve the watch faintly ticked. An icicle came flying past over his head, piercing into another tray. The yokai had dodged. What the? Come on! Preparing under the sharp stick of ice by her palm, the girl yanked Nate by the wrist and made a break for it, refusing to stop to answer any questions. She briefly looked back at the scene, suspicions proving correct upon closer inspection. The same yokai from mere days before, hunting for its next prey. Its comrades joined in the hunt, it seemed, as if with the point of a single finger they dropped gems and instead chased after the duo. This is why you don't just run off without telling me anything. Are you serious right now? Noelle almost couldn't believe him, her glare shifting from Nate to the yokai swiftly catching up, to whom she chucked an icicle at. How was I supposed to know they'd show up? It's not just that, it's all the time you... In one fell swoop, an unfortunate misstep on Noelle's behalf sent her straight into a trap. A pile of leaves her shoe touched, instantly caving in on itself. They crashed into the steep, yet somewhat shallow hole, a pained yelp erupting from Noelle's mouth. What the heck? Shh! He slapped his hand against her mouth, moving it as quickly as it came before she got the chance to bite it. Calm returned to the forest as it appeared, only occasional nocturnal birds cawing. Urgently, Noelle made a motion to beg Nate to stay where he was, slowly rising to her feet until she could just barely peek above the hole. She didn't expect such a sight. She blinked. An orange cat, its tail slowly swishing from side to side, obediently sitting and staring at the perplexed girl. You! I have a suspicion, well, I have two suspicions about what this cat could be, but I'm not going to divulge them just yet. We'll see if they turn out to be true. She recognized it almost immediately. The scar on its cheek made it easy. You! Failing to swipe the feline, it hissed and jumped away, scrambling for shelter under some roots instead. Beside where it originally sat, the yokai had halted the chase. The tallest of the bunch, their leader, she assumed, stood face to face with someone, their long hood and back turned to the hole shielded their identity. And to her surprise, the yokai slicing their head off, straight off, or skewering them, or whatever they initially planned, the beings instead retreated. What's going on? Nate asked carefully, one grasping his other arms eating him to recover from the fall. Noelle? Oh shit! She scrambled away and sat back down beside her brother, both of them widening their eyes at the approaching footsteps. Noelle could get a faint idea of who it was. What it was, she didn't know. It had brown boots, after all. And when its hood pulled down while at a close enough distance, the figure stared at the pitiful sight quivering in its trap. The cat from before also got curious enough to take a peek. Ripping the alieness hood off revealed a head of unruly ginger hair. Glaring eyes focused on the pendant hung by the girl's chest, accompanied by a snarl. Give that back. Ooh, that's a amazing place to end right there. Got a nice little. Well, we resolved the entity of who the alien was, who I suspected, yes, was Buck. But what those yokai were doing, we don't know. Don't know how Buck managed to chase them off. He's clearly had some experience dealing with them. And he really wants his pendant back, of course. He wants his UFO stone. Which is, I mean, he's like that in the games as well. Obsessed with it. But yeah, so it's quite late. It's quite late now. But yeah, this is an utterly enrapturing, if that's a word, story. So we go through 4 chapters. There's 23 total. So hopefully I can get this done in like 5 or 6 episodes. This was a long recording today. These were all probably going to be quite long recordings. So I mean, I usually try and stick to an hour length for my videos, but that's for fun cases. For something like this, where we've got nice, neat chapters. Obviously, a couple of chapters until, well, in this case, I'm too tired to continue, but it's long enough anyway. My voice is getting a bit. I don't know if you noticed. My voice is going a bit, but yeah, really enjoyed that, and I'm gonna really enjoy continuing from chapter 5 next time. So, see ya.